today's topic, like Shimin says, that will be on the emptiness. And just quickly recap what we have shared earlier, that we shared Zongmi's classification of Buddha's teachings on searching for the origin of life. And so the first level, Zongmi classified the teaching to human and heavenly beings. And the main purpose is to introduce the causes and effects in karma and reincarnation. But the problem that we encounter for this type of teaching is, we reincarnate this life, previous life, and next life. We have different body and mind. So who indeed generate the karma and who receive the retribution? And so based on this questioning, and then it comes to the second categories of teaching called Hinayana Teaching. And this main purpose for this teaching, of course, we all want to enter into the nirvana. We all want to transcend all the suffering. And so how to cut off all the delusion and suffering? And so Hinayana teachings taught us that because of the Namarupa, the physical and mental composition of our existence. So if we can cut off the existence of body and mind, then all the suffering will be ceased. But the question for this Hinayana teaching is that before we enter into the nirvana, and we still exist lifetime after lifetime without ceasing. And since the karma is with us, and so what is the entity that holds this continuation of existence? So then we get to the third level of teaching called Mahayana teaching on phenomenon appearance. And so the teaching is mainly focused on the consciousness only. So the eighth consciousness was introduced to explain, all the existence, body and mind are manifested by the consciousness, and mainly the eighth consciousness. And the question for this type of teaching is that if all the phenomena, including body and mind, manifested by the eighth consciousness are illusory, and then how can the consciousness that evolves be real? Okay, so the next teaching that will be focused on the emptiness of objectivity and subjectivity. So in other words, the objects perceived by the consciousness are illusory, and so does the consciousness that give rise to this illusory phenomena. So next teaching is also, this is Zongmi's critique of Mahayana teaching on phenomenal appearance. So in the Shastra, it says that granted that the object that has evolved is illusory, how then can the consciousness that evolves be real? If one says that one exists and the other does not, then the activity of dreaming and the things seen in the dream should be different. So we all have experience of dreaming, right? So when we were in the dream, we think the person in the dream is real, and also the environment and all the encounters were real. And once we wake up, then we found out that everything is a dream, including that person in the dream. So the treatise on the middle way says that there has never been a single thing that has not been born from causes and conditions. Therefore, there is nothing that is not empty. Things born by causes and conditions, I declare to be empty. And the awakening of faith, Shastra says that it is only the basis of deluded thinking that all things have differentiation. If one is free from thinking, then there is no phenomenal appearance of any object. So based on all this viewpoint, the next teaching will be focused on, maybe the consciousness and reality both be illusion. Now, next teaching is called Refutation of Phenomenal Appearances, and this teaching will be focused on the teaching of emptiness. In other words, from consciousness only, we move on to non-duality, the emptiness of non-duality. And I have to say that this is a very difficult and complicated topic, because if you search emptiness or Śūnyatā, you will find all kinds of definitions and all kinds of interpretation and all kinds of things that we want to detach. But overall, the function of Śūnyatā, the emptiness, is try to negate all the attachments we have. But the problem is we didn't know what kind of attachment we have, because we didn't know all the characteristics of existence. Okay, so we all know that we have three aspects of existence: mental aspect, physical aspect, and spiritual, which is equal to consciousness. So we have emotions, all the mental activity, judgment, like, dislike, hatred, all kinds of mental activities. And we have a physical appearance. We are human, we have human body, and human body has men and women. And also we are old, young, and baby, and we are sick and healthy, all kinds of physical conditions. And also the consciousness, spiritual part. People, some have high spiritual level, and some just are very material. So Buddha used the three, the called tri-lakshana, is basically impermanence, suffering, and no self, that try to describe, use these three characteristics to explain our existence. So when we talk about existence, means it's illusory, it's ever changing, so it's impermanent. And this kind of existence brings us suffering, because we are never satisfied and we are never settled. So we like to change, actually. And then anatta, which is a no self. And through this changing, the ever-changed conditions, that we cannot find a fixed self. We think that this is me. So yesterday, I was me. Today, this is me. And tomorrow, it's going to be me again. So this me, the self concept, is a continuation of knowledge or the notion of the self, and it becomes I. And so if we, through the practice, we know that actually we cannot find a fixed self that I can call me, okay? You look at your picture, photos from elementary school, from college, and when you're married, you know, when you have a baby, you line up your photos and you think they are all me, but it's not. It's just a photo, and that you have different body and condition at that time, but that's not you at the present moment. So this concept, the notion of I, we only can claim that at the present moment. The concept of I 10 years ago is your memory. It's not real you. Okay, so the no self is also very special, unique in Buddhism, that try to negate the I or atma that other religions focus on. Okay, so also from our existence, it really depends on how we understand or how we perceive our existence, how deep, how subtle we can perceive or see, quote unquote, see our existence, that we can, that decided how much we can detach from the attachment by the emptiness. So in other words, emptiness has different levels, okay? So this slide just want to show that, you know, we all want to enter into nirvana. And so in order to realize the state of nirvana, we have to directly see or experience, directly know what is no self and know the nature of emptiness. So this is a big topic in Buddhism. And also there is a subtle, the very fundamental and subtle differences between Buddhism and, you know, for example, other Indo religions. So some people ask for references. So before we get into the topic of emptiness, there are three things that are the major references. Of course, the Heart Sutra we recite it every day is the concise 260 Chinese characters. That is the core teaching of the Prajnaparamita Sutra, which has a big collection. Okay, so Zongmi used the Madhyamaka teaching to explain emptiness in this level of teaching, the teaching to refute the appearance. Okay, so that's the first sutra, the Prajnaparamita Sutra, or the Perfection of Wisdom Scripture. And the second one is the Great Perfection of Wisdom Treaty by Nagarjuna and translated into Chinese by Kumarajiva. And these treaties are very popular in Chinese tradition and in China, but not in other areas. And I think the Sanskrit versions are were lost. And the same treatise on the Prajna Paramita Sutra in Tibetan tradition is called Abhisamaya Alankara, okay, by Maitreya. And it's also very important sastra for Tibetan tradition. But it's not fully translated into Chinese yet, only partially translated. So if you are really interested in the topic of emptiness, you can, read some of them, or you can find some even concise sastra or commentaries on this topic. It's shorter and more concise, that you can check it out. And and also before we get into the topic of emptiness, and we have to know that in this Zhongmi's investigating the origin of life, he cited Nagarjuna's two types of wisdom, prajna. Nagarjuna classified emptiness into two. One is called the karma. It refers to, this is in the book, refers to that which the followers of the two vehicles alike heard, believed, and understood, because it refuted the attachment of Dharma of the followers of the two vehicles. So basically, this one type of teaching on emptiness is try to help the two vehicles followers to break their attachment, which is body and mind. And the other is called the distinct. It refers to that which only the bodhisattvas understood, because it intimated the Buddha nature. Okay, here, when we talk about the emptiness, one thing we have to remember is that emptiness, it does not equal to nothing. Nothing exists. The emptiness, the term Śūnyatā, is kind of wisdom, is a wisdom that can negate all the attachment. Okay, so it's not nothing exists. Okay, so the second part of the emptiness is kind of bridge to the idea of Buddha nature, and this will be the topic in the next week's talk, that I will elaborate more about Buddha nature. And so this is what we need to know before we discuss or share the emptiness. So what Buddhist term empty or emptiness, Śūnyatā or Śūnyatā, means? What it means depends a lot on the context in which it is used. So this is a very important concept that when we talk about emptiness. Okay, so this sutra called Sambhinirmācana Sutra. Okay, this is a very important sutra for Yogacara school, and it bridges consciousness, the emptiness, to Buddha nature, but it does not elaborate on Buddha nature that much. And so in this sutra, talk about 10 kinds of emptiness, and the causes for the why Buddha talk about 10 emptiness is that when the Maitreya Maitreya, okay, asked Buddha, you know, abiding in what and depending upon what do Bodhisattva in the great vehicle cultivate samatha and vipassana? Okay, we have to say that samatha and vipassana are the fundamental practice for all the Buddhist traditions. All the methods derive from the methods of samatha and vipassana. And so the questioning continues. Say, Buddha, how many kinds of signs do you speak of for Bodhisattva? You know, what kind of attachments? Who comprehend doctrines and comprehend objects and are engaged in eliminating signs? By what are these signs eliminated? Okay, so even at the level of Bodhisattva, still based on how deep we understand the doctrines and how we perceive the object, and we will have the so-called signs kind of attachment. And so what can eliminate this attachment? That's basically the question from Maitreya in this sutra. And that Buddha taught, like, okay, there are 10 signs and there are 10 kinds of emptiness that can eliminate these signs. Okay, so from this table, I spent quite some time make this table because I enjoyed it helped me understand deeper about Buddha's teaching about his 10 emptiness. So we spent a couple of minutes go through this. Okay, so on your left hand side, it's called comprehension of, means when we practice, what are the levels of comprehension we are at? Okay, the middle column is called the signs of detachment. So when we understand something, or at the level of understanding, and then we have equal attachment of it. Okay, for those we don't know, and then we don't know what kind of attachment we have. So there's no way that we can, you know, eliminate them. And so on the right hand side is called what kind of emptiness we can use to eliminate the middle signs of attachment. Okay, so those 5 in gray on top is for ordinary people, and the 5 at the bottom is for Bodhisattva, okay, more or a high practitioner. And so as you can see that we are at the first level, you know, like, oh, we understand impermanence, you know, sufferings and no self, and all this are knowledge, understanding. So we attach to the syllables and words. You know, if I say something, or you know, I'm nobody. If you see, okay, Buddha says in the you know, the certain sutra, and it says that emptiness is like this, no self is not like this, and then we attach to the meaning of the world, and then we will think that that is what it is. And so Buddha suggests that we have to use the emptiness of all phenomena to break it, to break our knowledge attachment to all the symbols and you know, wording kind of understanding. So as you go along, and for example, the third one, you know, we understand, oh, okay, there is what I can get, and the next one is what I get. And then so again, this is also for ordinary people. So when we understand, you know, I can own something, and then we attach to what we own or what belongs to us, and then we will attach to this ownership. But this is mine. Okay, I can get good house, good car, that will make me happy, and we have to practice the emptiness of the external, and if we attach to like me, this is me, and I can make this happen. I can make you happy. I can make myself happy, and this I become attachment, and then we are not just attached to the personhood. We also generate arrogance. Because once there is I, there is a comparison, and then we always want to be better, and this becomes an arrogance. And then we have to use the emptiness of the internal or non-attainable to eliminate the attachment. Okay, so when we go on to the blue part, for Bodhisattva, they have a spatial power that they can manifest, or they can make things exist or appear, and to help in order to help sentient beings. This kind of ability or understanding become also an attachment, and so the Buddha introduced the great emptiness to eliminate the notion of immeasurable. And as you go on, even to the last, that we know that the emptiness is also illusory, then we generate the intention to negate the emptiness. For example, if you really meditate to the level that you let go of the subjectivity and objectivity, and you enter into a voidness that nothing exists, and this is also attachment. This is also that we need to detach. But once we have this kind of concept or intention, it also becomes an attachment. And at this level, we have to use the emptiness of emptiness to detach this emptiness, which is the last level. After we use the emptiness of emptiness to break the notion of emptiness, then we can see what it is, what we really is, which is the Buddha nature that we will talk about. Okay, so from this table, you will see, there are different kinds of emptiness that we talk about. So emptiness is a general term. The purpose is to negate the attachment. Okay, and it depends on the knowledge, the understanding of the Dharma, or understanding of our existence, even from physical, mental, or spiritual perspective. Altogether, collectively, we have certain levels of understanding, and we have certain levels of signs of attachment, and then we have to cultivate different levels of emptiness to transcend it. Okay. And also in Lankavatara Sutra, this is also a very good example that Mahamari asked tons of questions in this round of Lankavatara Sutras. So Mahamari asked Buddha, say, how can we cultivate the underscored emptiness, birth, non-duality, and absence of self-nature. And so Buddha answered that, emptiness indeed. If we want to cultivate understands this, then emptiness is the key. So Buddha said that Mahamari, it is a term whose self-nature is false imagination. So in other words, because of one's attachment to false imagination, Mahamari, we have to talk of emptiness, no birth, non-duality, and absence of self-nature. So Buddha talked about emptiness for those who attach to false imagination at different levels. Okay, so so this is a very important view on the emptiness. Okay, so then Buddha continues to talk about, to tell Mahamadi that there are 7 kinds of emptiness, and it's you know, the Prajna Paramita Sastra by Nagasura talk about 18 emptiness, or there are 16, 18, 20 emptiness, all kinds of and we have 10 emptiness in the previous sutra, and Lankavatara Sutra has 7 abstinence, and you can see the pattern. Actually, they are very similar, and some elaborate more. But you can see that first of all, we have to break the individual marks, the appearance, and also we have to break the attachment to self-nature, and we have to break the emptiness of so-called no work is no work, and work is the compound condition and uncompound condition, and then and so on and so forth. Always go to the ultimate reality, that the emptiness that can help us to reach to realize the ultimate reality, the so-called the noble wisdom. But the 7th that I want to talk about, briefly mention, is the emptiness of mutuality. And in this Lankavatara Sutra, okay, is try to explain, you know, a lot of Hinayana practitioners, they kind of, at a certain level, they use this called emptiness of mutuality to try to get into nirvana, but this is not ultimate. Okay, this is very rough, very coarse level of emptiness, and what it means is, I explain this to you, is try to remind each other when we practice. Don't get into this level, okay? For example, I'm in this room. I'm the only one here, right? And so no other people. So the emptiness is like here. There is only Chang Hwa in this room, and there is no other people. So they are empty, okay? And if I say, you know, our Chan Meditation Center is in Amherst, okay? So it's in Amherst and it's not in Manhattan. So Manhattan is not exist in Amherst, okay? So Manhattan does not exist in Amherst, okay, because it's outside Amherst. Then this kind of emptiness, why Buddha say that is very coarse, is because the thing that we don't know doesn't mean that they don't exist. Okay, so the things that we cannot perceive or cannot comprehend doesn't mean that they don't exist. And the attachment that we don't know and we don't see doesn't mean that they don't exist. So we only can use the corresponded emptiness to eliminate the corresponded attachment. That doesn't mean once you make it, you liberate, you enter into nirvana. Okay, so for high practitioners, because they might not know what's up there, they didn't get to that level yet, and yet they can use a certain level of emptiness to, break or detach the attachment they know. Doesn't mean that they enter into nirvana, attain to the Buddhahood, and see the Buddha nature yet. Okay, so that's the very important concept that we have to build up, that Buddhahood is not that easy. Okay, so at this point, Zongmi made a conclusion that for this category of teaching that dispute the so-called appearance of existence, that they know, we know that mind and object both being empty is precisely the true principle of the great vehicle. Okay, this is also Mahayana teaching. Okay, but if we inquire into the origin of bodily existence in terms of this teaching, then bodily existence is from the beginning empty, and emptiness itself is its basis. Okay, the previous teaching declared that the consciousness is the basis for the origin of life. Right now, we kind of shift to understand that actually the emptiness is the basis for the origin of life. Okay. Now, okay, sorry. So Mahayana teaching on destroying or disputing appearance. This category of teaching declare that the emptiness is the base, the fundamental of our existence. And when we talk about our emptiness, I heard that from Chang Hwa Fashi's Chinese talk. People ask, how can we practice, samatha vipassana? This is always a question for all the Buddhists, that what our practice is going to be, so that we can detach all the attachment. And this is, I just copy the slides from my previous topics on the fundamental manuals of samatha vipassana by Zhi. Okay, so we all know that we have 6 organs interact with 6 objects outside, and we generate a sensation of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. And then further, we like what we feel pleasant, we dislike what is unpleasant, and we are ignorant or what are ignorance or what we have no feelings, so I just ignore it. Okay, and then from the 5 aggregates, we talk about form, sensation, perception, volition, and consciousness. So when we practice samatha, the method, even it's focused on an object or on the thoughts arise, stop, make discrimination. Further, we can have sensation. We know we are not a bad people. We know this is hard, this is cold, but stop the discrimination further to, I like it or I dislike it. Okay, that's the practice of samatha. And this is the first stage. If we want to practice any kind of emptiness, okay, we want to realize any levels of emptiness, this is the first step that we need to practice samatha. And this is very important for the Chan school, that we have to practice samatha. And how to practice vipassana. Okay, this is also very important for Chan school. Step one, when our sixth organ encounter the object, we have to contemplate that it's actually empty. We can use the teaching of consciousness only to help us understand that the object that we perceive is actually manifest through the eight consciousness. Something happened, And in step two, and many focus on the sixth consciousness. After we can have a certain levels of mind power, that we can know that what we perceive outside actually manifests within. And then next step of vipassana is focus on the activity of the sixth consciousness, because the sixth consciousness is most discriminated consciousness and most obvious consciousness that we can observe. And by contemplating the activity of sixth consciousness that we observed, how we conduct the wholesome activity of action, speech, and thought, and how we generate the unwholesome action, speech, and thought. And through this kind of observation, we watch the sixth consciousness. And then in the sixth consciousness, when we can, we can trap it all the time, and not let it be wild, out of control. And then the third step is through contemplate the sixth consciousness activity of the subjectivity and objectivity part. Okay. Samatha is to contemplate what we perceive in the process of perceiving. And the vipassana is contemplate the perceiver, the subjectivity part, and the process of perceiving. And overall, objectivity, the perceived, perceiving, and perceivers are all empty. So-called the emptiness of the three wheels. That means the three wheels mean the objectivity and subjectivity and the Dharma. Three of them both, empty. And this is the Mahayana meditation concept, that how can, once we know the emptiness, the concept of emptiness, how we practice through meditation. Okay. And this is a very famous Gong'an recorded in the Blue Cliff record. This is the master Ma Zu and his disciple Bai Zhang. So they walk in the field, and then there is a wild duck fly over in the sky. And then so Mazu asked Baizang, you know, where does the wild duck fly to? You know, where is the wild duck now? And then Baizang answered, the wild duck flew away. And at this point, Mazu just grabbed Baizang's nose, you know, very hard. So he cried out, and Mazu just shouted at him, you know, how did it ever fly away? And Baizang got enlightened. The attachment to the objectivity, subjectivity, and the Dharma fly away. The process of fly away totally dropped, and he got enlightened. Okay, this is a very interesting go on that explain, you know, how the objectivity and subjectivity and the Dharma formulate our conception for perception for our existence. Okay, so when we see the phenomena, even though the wild duck fly away, we did not see the wild duck at the present moment. But when we answer the question, the attachment is still there. The duck, the object, flying away, okay? And I am the one to know, to have this notion. Okay, so this is a very churned process of from master to disciple. Not everyone can appreciate this kind of teaching, but this is very interesting going on. Okay, so now these categories of teachings that dispute the appearance, you know, basically transcend the consciousness only. We talk about dependent origination, right? And we talk about karmic dependent origination. We talk about Namarupa dependent origination, and we talk about consciousness, the alaya dependent origination. And this, at this level, we have to talk about dependent origination and emptiness. And you heard this a lot. This is actually the core teaching of the Buddha. So all the phenomena arise depend on the conditions, because it's dependent origination. That's why it's impermanent, because the condition is ever changing, and the appearance or the existence is, of course, is ever changing. So it's impermanent, and it is ever changing. We are not able to grab a fixed me that exists. The same me exists at every moment. So the concept of I is the continuation of the notion of the fixed self. And then Buddha said, there is no self. You cannot find a fixed me that always exists. Okay. And we would talk about no self and emptiness and Buddha nature are the big topics. And I'm sure I cannot explain well just in 1 hour, but I will elaborate more about no self, emptiness of the emptiness on the Buddha nature, or Tathagata Gabra in my next talk. And then so because there's no self, and so the nature this, it's empty. It's, you know, every moment we have to detach. Even the present moment we have to detach. Okay. So to make a summarize, Nagarjuna has two types, established two types of wisdom, or two types of emptiness that refers to that refers to different audience. And then we talk about basically we call three vehicles: the Sravaka, Pratika Buddha, and Bodhisattva, called three vehicles. They all have different levels of attachment. They all need to use the emptiness to eliminate the attachment with different levels of emptiness. But only the Bodhisattva can receive the teaching of Buddha nature. So what Buddha nature is, we will talk about that a little next week. And for the question from Zhongmi to this teaching of refutation of phenomenal appearance, or the emptiness teaching, is that, okay, if the mind and its objects are both non-existent, then who is it that knows that they do not exist? Obviously, when we realize, experience the emptiness, then we don't disappear. Some people think that, oh, Buddhism always talk about emptiness, then I will disappear. Okay, then so why should I practice? You know, and people will have this kind of concept. But Buddha says that, Zongmi say that, you know, when we know that the subjectivity and objectivity are empty, doesn't mean that we disappear. Nothing exists. This goes to another extreme, and it's not a middle way. So there must be someone that knows that the objectivity and subjectivity and the dharmas are illusory. There is no eternal entity of any kind of subjectivity, objectivity, and dharma for any existence, phenomenal existence. But what is it? What is behind it? So Zongmi tried to, you know, push further to find out the true origin of life. Okay, so I basically talk about this. So the problem for people who understand, to realize the emptiness, is that they still at the stage of non-awakening. Even though they can achieve the stage of emptiness, they still not awake to the Buddha nature, the true essence of existence. Okay. So in the great the great Dharma Drum Sutra says that all emptiness sutras are expositions that have a reminder. That is not complete, not is the highest. And the great perfection of wisdom sutra says that emptiness is the first gate of the great vehicle, meaning that if we want to really get into the practice of the Mahayana vehicle, or the great vehicle that practice, the emptiness, realize that the emptiness is the first gate, okay, the entrance. After we can enter into the emptiness, then we start the true practice of the great vehicle. Okay, so in Chuan schools, we always say that once you are enlightened, it's the beginning of the practice. Okay, before we enlighten, all the practice are preparation for our further practice. Okay, now I finish here and I'll save some couple minutes for questions. I hope I can answer questions.
Okay, thanks, Fashi. Emptiness is a pretty profound subject. So if you have any questions or would like to seek any clarification, now is the time to raise up your question. So feel free, raise your hand and our volunteer will unmute you so you can ask questions directly. Okay, I see there are two hands. So each person, please just ask one question. So Michelle, please go first and then followed by Anna.
Wonderful, Fashi. Thank you for the great teaching, for the deep concept. No self, and sometimes we see people say, well, sometimes I see the not self. Is the difference between the no self and not self? Thank you.
Thank you for this question. Atma is the Sanskrit term for self. And Atma is no self. Okay, so this is Sanskrit terms to, Atma and Atma. Atma is the so-called self that in Indo system describes that every sentient being has eternal entity, or people call it soul, that continue, that carry life after life after life. That is not changed, okay? And so when this self, which is defiled, not pure, and through practice, when you get pure, this self will what is that called? Infused with the so-called Brahman, the big existence. Okay, so we will talk about that in Buddha nature for the so-called what is the difference between the Buddha nature and the Brahman. But this self, the definition of self, and Buddha just try to deny or try to dispute the concept of so-called external fixed existence of self. So in India called Atma. So in English or in Chinese we say 无我. In English, no self, non-self. I saw many translations for this and Atma, but I think it doesn't matter. What matters is what it really means.
Thank you.
Okay. Anna?
Yes, thank you, Fashi. I have a question about there. So since I always heard people say every human being has a Buddha nature. So, but I also just like today's today's topic about the dependent origination. So there's no self. So actually, the concept of no self and the Buddha nature is no conflict, no confliction, right? It's
No.
the same all part of the great vehicle.
I should say that impermanence, Buddha talked about impermanence, suffering, no self, and even emptiness are trying to, negate all the attachments. So the purpose is try to, what is that called? 否定, try to dispute the existing concept. But what Buddha really wants to bring us is the Buddha nature. So when we talk about no self or emptiness, it's a preposition. It's try to explain that what ordinary people think or perceive are illusory. Okay, and what we really find out is our Buddha nature. What we really need to see is our Buddha nature. And so there is no conflict when we talk about no self, because our Buddha nature, the so-called Buddha nature is not another kind of self-existence. If there is a self, we are not at the pure state of Buddha nature.